Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We are your hosts, Cassie and Chelsea. I'm Cassie, a single mom living with a chronic illness who is extremely passionate about living a full and happy life.
And I'm Chelsea, a mindset coach that has a passion for helping people learn to put themselves first and be the best version of themselves each and every day.
We came together to create Spoonies Unite, an uplifting community that offers resources, guidance, and support so you can live your best life while giving you the space to be yourself, be heard, and feel understood. We hope that by providing education from experts, we help Spoonies and their loved ones thrive.
This show is not only for those who live with a chronic illness, but their friends, family, spouses, and just anyone else existing on the earth. Our goal is to normalizing having a chronic illness by sharing the real stories with real people and show the world how relatable those everyday struggles can be. There's a little something in here for everyone.
And of course, thank you to our patrons for your continued support making this possible. If you love our show and want to get some extra goodies, go to patreon.com/therealspooniesunite. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Real Life Show, Living with a Chronic Illness. Today, Cassie and I are talking about Cassie. We're talking about you. So, hopefully you listened to Cassie's health journey, that episode. Yeah. If you haven't listened to that one, you might want to go back. You don't have to go back and listen to it, but it might give a little bit more context to everything we're going to talk about today. But Cassie, a few months ago, had something painful start happening and that she's been dealing with. If you've been following us on Instagram, you've seen her post about it on our stories and in her posts. But she's going to tell us about her fistula.
Yeah, that's right. A fistula. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, perfect. Yeah. So you definitely could go back and listen to my story of my health journey, but yeah, Chelsea's right. Like, you don't have to. It just might give you more background. So for those of you who might be new to listening or haven't listened or whatever to the journey, then I have Crohn's disease, which is inflammatory bowel disease. And it's an autoimmune disorder. It's classified as an autoimmune disorder that affects the digestive tract. But Crohn's can actually affect, like, your whole body. It's pretty weird. Anyways, so today we're focusing mostly on, like surgery and fistula and that kind of thing, because that's what just happened. So I am, what am I, like 10, 11, 12 days post-op? 12 days post-op. Yeah.
Yeah, 12.
12, I think.
12.
Yeah. And yeah. So I've had this issue for over 4 months. It's the end of September. It started mostly, like, I would say May, June. I can't actually remember exactly. But basically, I have had a lot of rectal pain off and on because of my Crohn's disease for like 5+ years, 7 years. And in May, June, it like felt different. Like I had a lot of pain down there, and it like felt like a different kind of pain than what I was used to.
And it seemed to last a lot longer too.
It did. Yeah. I like kind of ignored it the first few days. And then all of a sudden I like really felt like I couldn't even sit down properly. And I was like sitting on my hot water bottle and ice. I was alternating between the two. It was more intense pain and it was different. So after like almost a week, I called my GI and I was like, I think I'm having really bad rectal pain. I don't know. And then, I like felt around down there and I felt like what felt like a giant swollen ball or knob down there. It was weird, by like my bum hole, my anus. And I like texted my sister-in-law and I was like, I need you to feel around down there and tell me if that's normal. I'm like, is it really hard? Do you have a knob? You know? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So anyways, I called my GI. They told me to call my primary care. I went into the primary care. I was like, I feel like I have a cyst or something. I don't know. Something's wrong. They gave me an antibiotic shot and then started me on oral antibiotics. And they're like, let's see how you do. Let us know in 3 days. You should feel a lot better. I felt a lot better within about 24 hours. And then I just kind of like went down again from there. So I called after the 3 days and I was like, I felt good for that first 24, 48 hours. And now I'm starting to feel in pain again. So she sent out another round of antibiotics and I took that, which sucked because when you have Crohn's disease or any gut disorder, antibiotics are like the last thing.
You don't want to take more antibiotics and kill what potentially healthy gut bacteria you have.
Exactly. So it's kind of a last resort thing anyway. So after that didn't help, they sent me for a CT to see what was going on, because they were like, we think we should send you to OBGYN. And I was like, I really feel like it's rectal pain. So they sent me to get a CT to see if they should send me to OB. And the radiologist, I guess, said that they felt like they saw a small cyst in the right labia vagina area. So they sent me to OBGYN. I went in, this is over like weeks, I went into OB and she did an exam and she was like, I'm not seeing evidence of a cyst. And she's like, but your pelvic floor muscles are like super duper tight, probably from having the cyst. You need to go to pelvic PT. That's, I think, what the issue is. And I was like, okay. So I went to pelvic PT. I had some internal pelvic PT done and I had external done on like my back and stuff. And I kept saying, I can still feel this like lump near my butthole is what it felt like. And the pelvic PT did an internal examination and said she couldn't feel a lump. But I kind of think that she just sort of like misunderstood where I was saying the lump was. Anyway, so I decided, I called OB again and I was like, I've been going to pelvic PT for, I think it was like 3 weeks at that point, twice a week, and I'm really not feeling any better. So I was like, I'd really like to be seen again. And I really feel like it's rectal pain. So my OBGYN saw me again. She did another exam and she's like, I do feel this bump you're talking about. And she's like, your anus is not my orifice of expertise. So I'd like to send you to a colorectal surgeon.
At least she was being honest.
I know.
She knew really what she didn't know.
Exactly. I really appreciated that. And I did definitely feel like heard by her. And again, we're probably around 2 months into this journey at this point.
Which it shouldn't have taken 2 months.
Shouldn't have taken that long. Because the whole time I was like, it doesn't feel like it's my vagina. It feels like it's my butthole.
And you were also in a lot of pain.
I was in so much pain, you guys.
During that time.
All of it. All of it.
It's been a painful summer for you.
It's been a painful summer. Yeah. I couldn't sit, like it was starting to affect me at work. I couldn't stand. I was starting to have sciatic pain because things were sitting, like there was inflammation sitting on like the nerves, my sacrum, like it was just
and you were sitting in like weird positions, because I know like we would talk on Zoom and you'd have like 1 foot underneath one half of your butt, so that way you weren't putting as much pressure on it. So you were definitely like, you would sit sideways a lot, which that's going to throw your hips off and different muscles will be working. So yeah, you were in pain and it was only causing more pain.
It was a cycle. Exactly. You're totally right. I'm glad that you remembered that too. So it was an issue. So I finally got an appointment with a colorectal surgeon, which ended up being like 3 weeks later again. And she did the exam and first she asked me about everything. I kind of told her and she said she wanted to do an exam. And when she did the exam, she first put what felt like one of those things that goes in your ear to look in your ears, like it's not a speculum, but it's a whatever. It felt like she did that first, and that kind of stung, but it was like, okay. And then she's like, I'm going to do an exam, with my finger. And when she first inserted her finger, like that hurt, but then she like turned her finger and I almost shot off the table. And I was like, son of a fucking bitch. I was like, I'm so sorry, but that like that really hurt. That really hurt.
I feel like she should have, I feel like a doctor who is well experienced would not have been surprised that like that caused you that much pain.
Exactly. That's the thing. So she was real quick at taking her finger out. She had me get dressed. She came back in. And I should also just specify here that this is probably, I don't know, at least the 5th finger at the butt examination I have had with my Crohn's disease. So, and none of them felt like this felt. And so anyway, I got dressed, she came back in, and then she's like, I believe that you have a fistula and that surgery is the next option. And I was like, fuck. Like this is what I was really not wanting.
Damn it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I felt a little bit validated. Like I knew it was my butt. I had been saying for 4 months at that point, it is my rectum. I'm having pain in my rectum. And by this point, when I went into this appointment too, I mean, I really like Chelsea said, I could hardly sit. I mean, I was just affected in I couldn't drive comfortably. I was sitting on my left butt. I couldn't stand and teach for more than about 2 hours until I was in like really debilitating pain. in my rectum, my pelvis, shooting pain down both my legs. And so they wanted to schedule the surgery. And because of taking my Stelara shot, which is an immune suppressant, I'm not allowed to have a procedure within like 2 weeks of taking it. So I had to book the surgery about a month out. Over that next month, everything just continued to get worse. And then I additionally was feeling like that lump had gotten bigger and was more in my like right butt cheek. And it was kind of right where, like, if you think of like your peaches, it was right where like the little curve on the bottom right part of like your butt cheek, little peach kind of area is. So a few inches from like the butthole into the butt cheek where it kind of meets the thigh. And so in that spot, that's what you sit on, you know, that's close to like your sit bones. And I felt like I had like a golf ball in there, and it was pushing and on nerves, and the pain was unbelievable for about 2 weeks leading up to my surgery. And that's where I could not sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't exercise anymore whatsoever, like at all. I couldn't bend over properly. I mean, it was just like
you were in a lot of pain. I was
in a lot of pain. And it was definitely like sitting on a nerve, which was just making everything so much worse. And I kept saying, it's radiating pain into my vag. It's not a freaking, anyways. So when I was going into this, so then we're leading up to surgery at this point, and she had said that one of the first things that she was going to do was do a more thorough rectal exam under anesthesia. And I was like, well, that kind of is good, because maybe there's hope that I don't have a fistula, you know? And so I started to get like really afraid of the surgery, because this is the first surgery I've had. I'd had 4 colonoscopies and an endoscopy beforehand, but those are just like a, you know, relatively non-invasive procedure. This was the first time I had surgery. I started feeling like really afraid. I was really afraid of the anesthesia, especially. I'd never been under general anesthesia, and I was feeling like I was really afraid. And so I did talk with Dr. Selvey. She's one of our freaking podcast Spoonie World BFFs. There's an episode with her. She has had some Crohn's surgeries, and she really made me feel a lot better. And I also talked with Lori Gray, who's had surgeries, who also made me feel better. And then luckily, our little Airy Change Maker group, several of those women had surgeries too. So I started to feel really supported. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I totally am going to get through this. It's going to be fine. One of the things that really helped me the week of my surgery to actually start to let go of the stress and fear and anxiety that I was having, of like the fear of the unknown, was realizing like oftentimes when we have anxiety and stress, it's because we've lost control and we are wanting to like find a way to gain control. And it feels
super insightful.
Yeah. And it feels like if we can just control the situation and have a plan, our anxiety will be gone.
Girl, you're speaking my soul.
Right? For real. And I was like realizing this. And then I had a moment where I was like, okay, wait a second. I actually don't want to control this situation, because I am not a colorectal surgeon. So I don't want them to hand me a mirror and a scalpel and tell me to figure it out. So I actually... Oh my
God, that image just sounds terrifying.
That's the image I had in my head. I'm that's sure as shit not what I want. Nope. And I'm like, I want my colorectal surgeon to do the surgery. I don't want to tell her what to do. She's the expert. I want her to do what she feels like she should do. And then I was like, I don't want to decide if I should be under anesthesia or propofol, because I'm not an anesthesiologist. And the anesthesiologist is going to know what's best for me, because I sure as hell don't want to wake up halfway through my butthole surgery either, you know? And so as one who has been I'm really good at advocating for myself in the healthcare system. I am very much like, I know my body better than you know it. I live with it. You see it for 20 minutes a few times a year, you know? So I actually had to like kind of let go of that part and be like, okay, in this part, they are the experts. They are the professional. I do actually want to give them the control. And my anxiety and fear was practically lifted off my shoulders when I made that realization. So I wrote a little blog post about it while I was on painkillers. I haven't proofread it. And I posted it on our website, so I hope it makes a lot of sense. But it is at mywellnesshub.co under blogs. And it just talks about how I like dealt with anxiety leading up to the surgery, because this was a huge thing for me. Because just like, it was as simple as that. I was like, I don't want to control this. I don't want to do the surgery. I don't want to be in charge of my anesthesia yet. They can do it. So then fast forward to a few days later, and I'm at the surgery center, and I had to go in by myself. I couldn't have anyone with me because of COVID. And
Which
actually
pisses me off.
I know, it sucks. I really feel for everybody going through that right now. But yeah, I was fine. I wasn't scared. When the anesthesiologist came in to talk to me, I did say, I've had propofol for my last 2 colonoscopies. I heard that you can do heavy sedation sometimes instead of anesthesia. I'm scared of the anesthesia. Can we do propofol? And she's like, oh, no worries. We were going to do propofol anyway, but it's going to be heavier sedation than what you've had for your colonoscopies. And I'm like, oh my God, huge stress relief. And I'm like, and if they have to switch to anesthesia and do a tube, that's going to be, they're going to do that for a good reason, you know? And then the surgeon came in to see me, and I told her the only difference since I'd seen her last was that I was having a lot of right-sided pain in my butt cheek, like lower left, right butt cheek. Does that make sense? And so I was like, please take a look in that area, because I'm wondering if it's like abscessed and is draining over there or what's going on, but it's a lot of pain. So went in for the surgery. By the way, they like give you a shot where they're like, this is just going to help relax you and make you feel a little bit sleepy before we take you back. That shit is effective, because they were rolling me back, and I was like, this is great. You know, here I go to have this surgery and I'm going to be fine. And the anesthesiologist was in there wearing a really cool face shield. And I was just like, I feel safe right now because they're wearing a face shield. And then after the surgery, as they're wheeling me out, I do remember like holding the arm of the anesthesiologist. And I was like, thank you so much for keeping me alive, because I really want to change the world.
Okay, y'all. So I knew Cassie was having surgery the day that she had it. I think I knew it was in the morning, but I didn't know what time. And so I think there was a moment where I was like, man, I wonder if Cassie's done. And I go to check our Instagram, and there's all these pictures that Cassie had posted. And they just cracked me up, and they made me feel good that like you were feeling good in that moment. Because Cassie's literally is like, I feel great.
Yeah, I loved it.
I don't have anyone to talk to because there's no one here, which made me feel sad for you.
I know.
But I felt, because I knew how stressed and anxious you were about this. So the fact that you had made it to the other side and was at least in that moment feeling okay, I was like, okay, good. Like, I felt like you really deserved a moment of not feeling like complete
shit. I know, right? Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yay.
That's exactly it. Like, yeah. So I woke up and I was like in this like little curtained, just my bed and some curtains. And I woke up and I remember like hearing voices, and I knew it was the nurses, but I was just like, hello, is anybody there? And like, they're like, we're here, hon. You're just on the other side of the curtain. And I was like, okay. And I would like go back out, and then I'd come to, hello, is anybody there? And then they were like, we're here, hon, you know? And I remember feeling like, but they're not opening the curtains. And then I heard the nurses, and one of them was talking about choosing, like she wanted to get a manicure, and she's like, I wonder what fall colors I should choose, if I should do like a gray or an orange. And I was just like, plum is a great nail color for fall. And they're like, thanks, sweetie, you know? And I was just like, I'm not eavesdropping, I'm just listening.
You're like, I'm not trying to pretend to listen. I flat out am.
And so then a nurse did come in and asked if I wanted something to drink, and she decided it was a good idea to hand me my purse. And then I had my phone, and I was like, Instagram. So yeah, that was a great time. But anyways, so fast forward again, and my mother-in-law picked me up, and I was on my way home. She was driving me home, and I threw up in the car. Luckily, she had a plastic bag. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to throw up, you know? And so it was obviously all the medications, and I hadn't eaten. And I think it was a bit of motion sickness, which I don't usually have. So I threw up in the car, got home, and then I ate a little something. And let me just tell you, my favorite thing post-surgery has been unsweetened vanilla almond milk. Oh my God. What are those cartons? A liter? right? At like Whole Foods that you get.
I,
Or something,
yes.
1 point something liters or something.
I
Those
think
cartons.
so.
Okay,
Because the big jugs are gallons.
They're not they're not as much as a
Yeah.
gallon of milk. So I think it's half a gallon or a liter.
I think it's like a liter.
So I have drank 6 of those. Actually, it would be 7. I have drank 7 of those
in 12 days.
in 12 days, which is nuts. But there's a little bit of protein, it's hydration, and it settles my stomach great for taking the pain medication, which is Percocet right now. And so for those of you, because I don't take pain medication because it makes me feel so nauseous and so sick, it is not usually even worth it. But I have been taking it for this, and the almond milk has been a godsend. It settles my stomach. And so for those of you who have issues with taking medication, and if you can have nuts and nut milk, I recommend trying this. So anyways, get home. And Chelsea and I are going to make a whole other episode about pain and pain management, because I had some pretty big realizations with dealing with pain through this process. Like, I told Chelsea that it was the next day after the surgery and I took pain medication, and I had realized that that was the first time I'd been pain-free in over 4 months, like at all, which was a pretty shocking realization. And so we are going to do a whole other episode. So I'm not going to get into dealing with the pain yet, because that's going to be coming really soon. But it was pretty amazing. I right away, that pressure in my right butt cheek that I was feeling, that was sitting on a nerve, there's obviously some kind of inflammation that was gone. Like, upon me waking up, I could feel that nerve pain was gone. So that was really awesome. And then I was supposed to take baths, so I took a few baths, and those kind of helped. And I remember that I wanted to know what happened down there, because I couldn't remember because of the drugs, and I didn't know what
Which
they had
again
done.
was just why they should have someone with you.
I know, and the surgeon did call my mother-in-law, and they talked. But I think I couldn't even really remember what she had told me.
Yeah.
So I was in the bathroom, and I set up a mirror on the counter, and I tried to kind of look at my butt a little bit, because I can't sit, I can't lay on the floor. So I just set the mirror on the counter and tried to turn and look a little bit, but I couldn't spread my butt cheeks apart either. And all I could see was a blue thing in my butthole. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because you texted me. Yeah. So if anyone wants to know the level of friendship Cassie and I have, I was one of the people she texted to be like, there's something blue by my butt.
Yes, I don't know what it is. At my butthole, and I don't know what it is. And it was the weekend, so I couldn't call, to talk to the surgeon. And so I took a bath, and I tried to feel around down there, and I was like, what did they do, And so I did get to talk to the surgeon a few days later, and found out that, because I also saw that there was a hole in my butt cheek where they had obviously made an incision to drain that cyst or abscess or whatever was in there, putting pressure on the nerve, but they didn't stitch it up. And it was what I felt was kind of a big hole. So I was like, is there a tube in there too? I don't know what's going on. So I called the surgeon. I did get to speak to the surgeon's nurse on Tuesday last week. So I had the surgery Friday. So it was a good 4 days later. And she explained that they placed a ceton into the fistula. And so a ceton for this fistula is basically this tube that I guess that they insert into the fistula. So a fistula is it's almost like a little tunnel or pathway that kind of comes off of your intestine and then tries to drain elsewhere in the body, and it can abscess and stuff like that. I recommend Googling to get the exact definition. So they place this tube into the fistula, and then they loop it around, and then the outsides of the two ends of the loops are outside of my body, draining out the fistula. And so when I talked to the nurse, that's what the blue thing is, obviously. And when I talked to the nurse, she was like, you need to be wiggling around and sliding around that tube to make sure that the openings to drain don't go back inside your body and drain infection into your body. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so yeah, she's like, next time you're in the bath, make sure you wiggle it around. And so I did, and that hurt like a son of a bitch. Oh my God. And so every time that I go poop too, there's this tube there. It's very weird. So I'd also read that you want to try not to strain when you're pooping, because overuse of sphincter muscles down there or straining can actually like dislodge the ceton. And so I have been taking a stool softener, especially because the pain medication. I've been taking Colace. Yeah, Colace, and that has not upset my tummy thus far. It's maybe just affected me a little bit, but I think the benefits have outweighed how it's made me feel like a little bit sick sometimes. So I've used Ducalax or Ducalace before, and I didn't like that. This Colace has been better, just for those of you out there who might need to be trying something. And so anyways, so now where I am, and so you can't sit at all. You can't exercise. You can't walk very much the first kind of like week when you're bouncing back. And then it says to be really careful with like exercise and sitting, or you can't pick up weight and stuff for quite some time after. So I have an appointment next week, which is going to be 3 weeks after the surgery, to see how I'm doing down there for post-op, and then also might get to have the ceton taken out. I think it's going to depend on how much it is still draining. Otherwise, it might be left in for up to like several months. I do have to slide it around. That was more painful last week than it was like yesterday and today. But like, for example, I had more bowel movements today than I have thus far, which has been pretty painful. And after the last one, I did have to like wiggle it to make sure, and the opening was like partially inside my butthole. So I had to like move it to make sure that it was draining outside, and that kind of hurt and didn't feel very good. And so the first few days I had bought some of those like always incontinence, like wearable disposable underwear or whatever. They're kind of like an adult diaper. I wore those for the first like 4 or 5 days because I was draining a lot of blood and a lot of like draining from this fistula thing. And then I had that incision also on my butt cheek. So I really couldn't wear like underwear because of where that incision is. Now I am wearing regular underwear with a pad for like your period. And I just have to wear it further back than usual because I am like draining out of my butt. And I might be like this for a few months, or maybe only till next week. We'll see. But it's pretty painful. And so I drove for the first time yesterday. So that was 11 days after until I could drive. Biggest reason being that I couldn't sit. And I have a Ford Fiesta now. And so the way that my legs are when I'm seated is my leg has to be a bit more forward. Whereas probably if I'd had my Jeep like before, or a truck, and your seat is further like up, from your accelerator, I probably could have driven sooner. But the positioning of my seat and my accelerator, I couldn't drive for 11 days. Couldn't sit at all for days. And then if I took pain medication and did find myself like sitting even just to the side, I really paid for it later. And I haven't been able to lay on my back, because laying on my back actually puts like pressure on the butt, which Dr. Selvey said that that's how it was for her, and I wasn't expecting that at all. And so I'm glad that she told me that, because I was kind of not as shocked to realize I couldn't lie down on my back. So I have been laying on my side and propped up on my side for 12 days. And the pain, they did warn me that it's a pretty painful recovery. I would say that it's still not the most pain I've ever been in. I've definitely been in worse pain than all of this. But it's been pretty fucking painful. And the bowel movements are the worst part, 100%. And so, like I was able to, yesterday I only took one painkiller. Today so far I've just taken one, so I feel like I'm able to taper off of those, which is good. But I think I just wanted to get to share with everybody like some of those feelings of going into surgery and then coming out of it on the other side, and what that's been like, and the recovery, because I'm sure we do have a lot of people with IBD who listen to our podcast and might have to have a fistula surgery, or they've already had a fistula surgery or rectal surgery, and they can kind of like listen to this too. And I would love to be in touch with you. Please reach out on Instagram. We're great on Instagram.
Hey everyone, I know you're enjoying this episode of the real life show Living with a Chronic Illness, but we're going to pause for a moment because I want to tell you about our most recent offering to help you live your best life. It is mywellnesshub.co. At mywellnesshub.co, you will find a comprehensive resource library for chronic illness individuals to live their best life. You know, all those hours you spent searching on Google to find that thing that's going to help your pain, or that thing that's going to help you feel better, or what type of diet to work, what books to read, what podcasts to listen to, you know, all the stuff. Well, we're putting all of that into one single resource library to make it easy for you to find the resources you need. And as part of that, we have our membership site, The Hub, where we're providing education for you at the low cost of $15 a month. You're going to get classes from experts around the freaking world, multiple times a month, multiple times a week. You'll have access to the recordings from the past, all sorts of really, really good stuff. So make sure you go check out mywellnesshub.co.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you think of anything else, Chelsea?
No, I know we kind of touched on you being in some pain in some other episodes previously.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just hope that if anyone is going through something similar where they're experiencing pain, they don't know why, or there's that possibility of surgery, then they just maybe feel a little less alone by hearing your experience.
And
So,
that reminds me too, really quick, that I did want to add in, like, with that kind of like diagnostic journey of getting to the point of like me saying for 4 months, I feel like this pain is in my butthole. And then finally the rectal surgeon being like, yeah, it is, the colorectal surgeon. And when I asked her at that point too, I said, you know, is surgery our only option, or is there anything else we can do first? Because I was afraid of surgery.
mm-hmm.
And she explained that we've really tried everything, because the antibiotics would have been something that they would have tried first anyway. And we know that really didn't do anything. And then pelvic PT, we know, helped some of the symptoms, but it didn't help the issue. And then additionally, like during that time, several weeks before the surgery, my GI prescribed me two antibiotics to take. And I was like, do I have to take these? And they were like, it's recommended. And all of the symptoms were like horrible tummy stuff and diarrhea. And I'm like, that is going to fuck up my problem way worse. And so I was like, why have they prescribed this? The surgeon didn't prescribe any antibiotics. I already did 2 rounds of antibiotics. I have Crohn's. I don't want to do it. And I ended up calling the surgeon and saying, do I have to take these? And they said it was up to me. They're not totally sure why the GI prescribed them. So I ended up not taking them. So that's another part of that kind of advocacy balance. They kind of prescribed them as like a precautionary measure. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't right for me. And I'm glad I didn't take them. So I did want to like just throw that into, just like you said, speaking of like, you know, doctors and helping people to hopefully feel less alone. And also if you're out there facing a surgery similar, because it was a relatively non-invasive surgery. It was, that being said, it was a relatively non-invasive surgery, but it's in an extremely sensitive area. And that's what the colorectal surgeon explained to me. She's like, it's actually a pretty simple, straightforward surgery, but it's in a very sensitive area that the recovery is really painful. And so, yeah, I was pretty afraid. I was less afraid that week going up to it. And it definitely was worth it to do, because like I said, in some ways I felt pain relief right away, especially on the nerve. But in other ways, I'm still having a lot of rectal pain still, but that I do see that continuously getting better. And so hopefully, yeah, this is going to make you feel less afraid, or help you to feel less afraid. And then, yeah, stay tuned for our other episodes about, especially like pain management. I had told Chelsea I wanted to talk quite a bit about that in this episode, but then we decided it needs to be its own episode.
We want to give it the time that it deserves.
Yes, and some research. So this is mostly just talking about, leading up to surgery, coming out of it, for those following along with my journey, and then for those who might be experiencing it too.
So let us know if anything that Cassie shared was helpful, and we will be back very soon with that chronic pain episode. So
yeah,
look out for that.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please write us a review to help us reach more people like you.
If you'd like to connect with Cassie and I, you can find us on Instagram at The Real Spoonies Unite. You can also join our private Facebook community, Spoonies Unite, or you can visit our website, therealspooniesunite.com, for all sorts of resources and to stay up to date with our current projects. And don't worry, you can find all of these links in the show notes below.
Thank you to our wonderful Spoonie patrons for all your support, and you can become one too. That's right. All you have to do is go on over to patreon.com/therealspooniesunite, and you can get all sorts of extra goodies like videos of our episodes and more.
Any support is greatly appreciated. It helps enable us to create more content for all of you, as well as make this podcast sound better and better. Thanks for listening. We can't wait to be back in your ears soon.